Well, hello to everyone. We're going to pick back up in our Bible study in Judges today. Going to cover chapters 9 through 14. As I begin to study this book, it's really an interesting book, but just a lot to cover. And I think if you try to do it too fast, you will miss the whole meaning behind the book. So we're going to look at chapters 9 through 14 today. And basically what's happened is we know last week Gideon has died. His son, Abimelech, is now king of Shechem. And so he's taken over. And Abimelech, if you translate that word from the Hebrew, it means my father is king. So he felt like he inherited the right to be king, but if you remember in chapter 8, Gideon said, "No, I will not be your king, and my sons will not rule over you either. Only the Lord shall rule over you." So you can say Abimelech is kind of a rogue leader, so to speak. So he comes up with this plan and convinces his brothers to support him. So they bring him silver from the temple of Baal-Bertha, and he kills them all, except for one, Jotham, and Jotham escapes. So, during this 3-year reign, the Shechemites basically rebel against him. They've had enough, they're done, and so one day as he's out fighting during one of the rebellions, a woman throws a millstone on his head, and it kills him. And so he's dying, and he asks one of his armor bearers to kill him because he didn't want to be known as being killed by a woman. And so the armor bearer wouldn't do that, but God requited him and the men of Shechem for their ungratefulness, for their ingratitude, for their treatment of the family of Gideon. So basically God punished them all. And it's kind of like if you think about it, there are consequences to sin. Some are more extreme than others, but there are consequences. And so as you get into chapter 10, Tola judged Israel for 23 years and died. And then Jar, who was a Gileadite, judged Israel for 22 years, and he died. Now remember what I said about the theme of Judges: sin, bondage, a judge, deliverance of the judge, I should say, the blessings of the Lord, death of the judge, and then reoccurring sin. So, once these judges have died, Jar's died, the children of Israel, once again, they forget all about God. They forget all about what God has done for them. They kind of turn their back on Him, and they begin to worship various gods, false idols. And so, at this point, they're now under the servitude of the Philistines and the Ammonites. And God is really becoming very impatient with them. His patience has run very thin. And He's really to the point where He's like, when is enough going to be enough? So, at this point in chapter 10, Israel has no leader. And I should say they have no leader of a man. We know God is their leader, but they've kind of turned their back on God. And, His patience is running thin with them. He's like, how many times do I have to keep doing this for you? How many times? And that's kind of the thing that he will speak to us at times. How many times What is it going to take for you to understand you don't need to be doing this? So as we enter into chapter 11, there's a Gileadite by the name of Jephthah, and he's a mighty man. He was the son of a harlot, and so the people of Gilead, actually his family, Gilead's family, basically said to him that, you're not going to inherit our father's house because you are the son of a strange woman. You're not the son of our mother. And so basically he was kind of driven out of his house. And, it was basically, hey, we don't want you around. And so at this time, when this happens, Ammon has made war against Israel. And when the children of Ammon made war with Israel, the elders of Gilead, they went to get Jephthah. Now, it's kind of funny how we don't want you because you're the son of a harlot. But when things go bad, we know how mighty and victorious of a fighter you are. We need you. We want you to come back and be the captain of Gilead. We want you to go into war with the Ammonites. So he does. And he makes a vow to the Lord. He says, if I'm victorious on this, if I'm victorious in this battle, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sacrifice the first thing that greets me. Well, as you can imagine, Jephthah is victorious. He overthrows the Ammonites. And in verse 31 it says, Then it shall be that whatsoever cometh forth of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. So Jephthah passed over unto the children of Ammon to fight against them, and the Lord delivered them into his hands. The Lord delivered them into his hands. Jephthah was victorious. 34 says, And Jephthah came to Mizpah unto his house, and behold, his daughter came out to meet him with timbrels and with dances. And she was his only child. Beside her, he had neither son nor daughter. And it came to pass when he saw her that he rent his clothes and said, Alas, my daughter, thou hast brought me very low. Thou art one of them that trouble me, for I have opened my mouth unto the Lord, and I cannot go back. Jephthah says, I can't take my word back from God. I can't break a promise to God. She said unto him, My father, if thou hast opened thy mouth unto the Lord, do to me according to that which hath proceeded out of thy mouth. For as much as the Lord hath taken vengeance for thee of thine enemies, even of the children of Ammon. And she said unto her father, Let this thing be done for me. Let me alone 2 months, that I may go up and down upon the mountains, and bewail my virginity, I and my fellows. So for 2 months, she goes up and down the mountains, and she's basically expressing her sorrow in the fact that she's never going to be married. She's never going to have a physical relationship with a man. I don't want to get too graphic because there may be some children watching. But basically, she's never going to have a sexual relationship with a man. And so she expresses that sorrow for 2 months. And then after 2 months, she comes back, still not ever knowing a man. And her father does what he vowed to do, and that's sacrifice his daughter. In verse 40 it says, or let me back up to 39. And it came to pass at the end of 2 months that she returned unto her father, who did with her according to his vow, which he had vowed, and she knew no man. And it was a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went yearly to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite 4 days in a year. So Jephthah kept his word. He says, I can't go back on my word. I can't go back and change what I've said to God. I've made a promise. And she said, you know what? You keep your word to God. No matter what, you keep your word to God. Even though she knew that she was going to die. She wasn't going to let her father change his promise to God. She wasn't going to let her father sway on what he had told God. And in a sense, that showed her faithfulness as well. I don't know that I would be the same. I can't say that I would be the same. I can't say that I wouldn't, but I can't say that I would be the same. And it's not because, as this world has progressed, we have become more sinful in our nature, and to a lot of people, a promise is just that. It's just words. But we have to learn to trust and rely on faithfulness in God, and we have to learn and trust to rely that if we tell God we're going to do something, we better do it, because if not, who's to say that he wouldn't have killed Jephthah's daughter anyway? Who's to say that God, as punishment to Jephthah, if he had broke his promise to him, who's to say that his daughter's life would not have been taken anyway? Or who's to say? So you have to keep that in remembrance, that, a vow to God is exactly that. It is a vow that needs to be upheld forever and ever, because just you think, well, I'll just change my mind and I'll tell God that I made a mistake and I really don't want to do this. She's my only daughter, and God gave her to you. God gave you your children. God gave you your husband. He gave you your wife. He gave everybody to you. He gave everything that you have in your life to you, and he can take it away at a moment's notice. And we have to keep that in mind. So Jephthah kept his word to God. His daughter said, keep your word to God. Even if it means I lose my life, keep your word to God. So we go into verse 12, and now the men of Ephraim, they've gathered, and they're angry. They're angry for not being asked to go fight against the Ammonites. And verse 2 says, and Jephthah said unto them, I and my people were at great strife with the children of Ammon, and when I called you, ye delivered me not out of their hands. And when I saw that ye delivered me not, I put my life in my hands, and passed over against the children of Ammon. And the Lord delivered them into my hand. Wherefore then are ye come up to me this day to fight against me? He says, you know what? You didn't act when you had a chance. I called upon you for help, and you didn't act. And I took things into my own hands. And now you're coming to me, you're angry, and you want to fight. Well, the Gileadites overthrew the Ephraimites. And verse 6 says, then they said unto him, say now Shibboleth. And he said Shibboleth, for it could not frame to pronounce it right. Then they took him and slew him in the passages of Jordan, and there fell at that time of the Ephraimites 42,000. They killed 42,000. And Jephthah judged Israel for 6 years, and then he died. And then you have Ibzan, who is of Bethlehem, who judged Israel. And he judged Israel for 7 years. And then you have Elon, who was a Zebulunite, and he judged Israel for 10 years. Then you have Abdon, the son of Helad, who judged Israel, and he judged Israel for 8 years. So, as you can see, Jephthah, and then you have 3 more judges come in, and they kind of, same thing. And we're going to see it in chapter 13, in the very first verse. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. So for 40 years, Israel was ruled by the Philistines. And we're going to see something special in this chapter. the Philistines are oppressing Israel. And so, in verse 3, it says, And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman, and said unto her, Behold, now thou art barren, and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive, and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray thee, and drink not wine nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, thou shalt conceive, and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. And the woman came and told her husband, saying, A man of God came unto me, and his countenance was like the countenance of an angel of God, very terrible. But I asked him not whence he was, neither told me his name. But he said unto me, Behold, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and now drink no wine nor strong drink, neither eat any unclean thing, for the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb to the day of his death. So he has appeared to Manoah's wife, who is barren. She can't have children. And the angel says, You're going to have a son. And your son's going to deliver Israel out of the Philistines' hands. And he says, Don't eat any unclean thing. Don't drink any alcohol. Don't don't drink any wine or strong drink. And the razor shall never come to his head, because he's going to be a Nazarite. So she goes and tells her husband. And verse 8 says, Then Manoah entreated the Lord and said, O my Lord, let the man of God which thou didst send come again unto us, and teach us what we shall do unto the child that shall be born. And God hearkened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came unto the woman, and she sat in the field, but Manoah her husband was not with her. And the woman made haste and ran, and she showed her husband, and said unto him, Behold, the man hath appeared unto me, that came unto me the other day. And Manoah arose, and went after his wife, and came to the man, and said unto him, Art thou the man that speakest unto the woman? And he said, I am. And Noah said, Now let thy words come to pass. How shall we order the child, and how shall we do unto him? So basically, the angel goes in and tells them the same thing. No strong drink. Don't eat any unclean things. Don't let a razor touch his head. And so, what we're about to see here is we're about to see the birth of Samson. And so, after the angel appeared, Manoah, he goes and makes an altar, and worships to the Lord. And then so here in verse 24, And the woman bare a son, and called his name Samson. And the child grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to move him at times in the camp of Dan between Zorah and Eshtaol. We see the birth of Samson. We know of the strength of Samson. We know that he was mighty. The mighty Samson. But we see here God sent a deliverer. Think about this. God came to Mary, or should I say, Gabriel came to Mary, told her that she was going to have a son, and that her son would be deliverer of the whole world, and that his name would be Jesus Christ. And then he appeared to Joseph, and he said, Don't worry, Joseph. Everything that has been done unto Mary has been done unto her by God. Kind of similar in a sense. But Samson here is born, and he's born to be the deliverer of Israel during this period of time. So Samson's grown. He's grown up, obviously, in chapter 14. He goes to Timnath, and he sees a woman there who happens to be a Philistine. And he came up and told his father and his mother and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath. Of the daughters of the Philistines, now therefore get her for me to wife. Then his father and mother said unto him, Is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren, or among all of my people, that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistine? Samson said unto his father, Get her for me, for she pleaseth me well. But his father and his mother knew not that it was of the Lord that the sought an occasion against the Philistines, for at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. God promised that Samson would be the deliverer of Israel, right? He's beginning to work. And so Samson goes down and he wants to marry this woman, and as he goes, he kills a lion. And then as he returned back, he saw that the lion carcass had a swarm of bees and honey in the carcass. And he ate of it. And then he gave his mother and father some, but he didn't tell them where he took the honey from. Why? Because the Nazarites were not supposed to touch any dead thing. So Samson is basically treading in murky water here. He's kind of breaking one of the laws. He's eating of an unclean thing. And so Samson goes down and throws a big party and for him and his Philistine friends, and he gives them a riddle. Verse 12 says, And Samson said unto them, I will now put forth a riddle unto you, if you can certainly declare it me within the 7 days of the feast, and find it out, then I will give you 30 sheets and 30 change of garments. But if you cannot declare it to me, then you shall give me 30 sheets and 30 change of garments. And they said unto him, Put forth thy riddle, that we may hear it. And he said unto them, Out of the eater came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. And they did not in 3 days expound the riddle. So they go to Samson's wife, and they basically said, you need to entice your husband to give you the answer to the riddle. Because if you don't, we're going to burn thee and thy father's house with fire. So Samson's wife, she comes and she's crying before Samson, and she says, if you hate me and love me not, then put forth a riddle unto the children of my people, and not told me the answer. He said, I have not even told it to my father or my mother. And he says, but I will tell you. He says to her, I have not told it, and this is in verse 16, I have not told it my father nor my mother, and shall I tell it to thee? And she wept before him the 7 days while their feast lasted. And it came to pass on the 7th day that he told her, because she lay sore upon him. She told the riddle to the children of her people. The men of the city said unto him on the 7th day before the sun went down, What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? And he said unto them, If ye had not plowed with my heifer, ye had not found out my riddle. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon, and slew 30 men of them, and took their spoil, and gave change of garments unto them, which expounded the riddle. And his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house. But Samson's wife was given to his companion, who he had used as his friend. So he gives the answer to the riddle. The men go back and they tell him the answer. He knows the deceit that it took to get the answer. And so he kills 30 of them. And he takes their garments as a payment of the bet that they made. And he goes back up and he finds out that his wife has run off or has been given to his friend, basically his best man, so to speak. It's been given over. So we see here that God's plan is being put into place here. We've seen over these last 5 chapters, 6 chapters, however many we've covered, that sin is at the center of all the wrong, of all the punishment, of all the wrongdoings, of all the things that have happened. When you look deep into the Word, you find that there is sin. There's sin. When you look and you read in the words about the blessings of God and the peaceful times that they have, you will see that there is no sin in their life. Everything is good. And then all of a sudden, they go right back to where they were. You know, and that's one of the questions that can be posed through the ages of time, now until the end of time, because there's going to come a time. But the question is, how long is God going to be patient with our sin? How long is He going to put up with it? I'm saying that to say this. There's going to come a time when He says enough is enough. He looks to His Son, says, go get your children. Time is running out, folks. I hope that this Bible study helps you tonight. I hope that you will gain something from it, I hope. And I just want everyone to know at Cold Creek Church how much I love you, how much I miss being in church with you. And for those that don't attend Cold Creek Church that may be watching the videos, we're glad that you're watching them. And we hope that whenever things get back to normal, I guess you could say, that you'll come out and visit with us. And you'll come out and be a part of our fellowship with us, because we would love to have you. But until then, just keep watching. Let the Lord bless. And I hope each and every one of you have a good night.